Welcome to Chapter 9. In this chapter, we'll discuss international strategic alliances and explore in more detail some of the considerations that go into designing and managing those alliances. Strategic alliances are one entry mode into a foreign market. In Chapter 6, we discussed 4 different entry modes: exporting, licensing, international strategic alliances, and foreign direct investment. Strategic alliances in their various forms are growing in popularity because they offer a relatively fast and flexible way to enter into new markets. At the same time, they're also inherently unstable and represent significant management challenges with a high failure rate. Most recent data suggests that international joint ventures, are likely to fail 30 to 60% of the time. Strategic alliances are cooperative agreements between 2 or more organizations from different countries. These alliances are created with the objective of generating value in a specific way for each of the partners. Emerging countries, for example, represent excellent potential for multinationals because of their growing middle class. One way to enter these markets is through strategic alliances with local companies that have a solid understanding of the host country market, which a foreign multinational might not have. An alliance is a good opportunity for international expansion when a company doesn't have the resources or the talents to do so on its own, for example, lack of local market knowledge. It's also an opportunity to share the risk with another partner. So in this chapter, we're going to look at some of the steps that go into developing a successful strategic alliance. Some of the key decisions that go into forming a strategic alliance is first deciding where in the value chain to link with a partner organization. For example, McDonald's formed an alliance with Sinopec China to have the exclusive rights to put drive-through restaurants in Sinopec's gas stations. That's an example of linking at the distribution level. Once an organization has decided where in the value chain it wants to link with another partner, a partner has to be selected. Once a partner is deemed acceptable, the partners have to choose the alliance type that both meets their needs, negotiate the agreement, build the organization, and build trust and commitment. We'll talk about the importance of building trust and commitment at the end of this lecture, and it's a key point. Lack of trust and commitment very often leads to the failure of different types of alliances. Of course, once an alliance is up and running, it's important to continuously assess performance, just as we do in our own organizations, to make sure that the alliance is meeting the strategic objectives of both of the parent companies. If the alliance is not meeting its objectives, the organization can make the decision of whether to terminate the alliance or to revise and implement changes. Some of the benefits of forming a strategic alliance is that it enables both partners to gain access to each other's knowledge. A foreign partner might gain access to host country knowledge, whereas a host country partner might gain access to the foreign partner's technology or managerial know-how. It enables both partners to share the risk of the new venture, share technology, benefit from economies of scale, and potentially gain access to lower cost raw materials or labor. Of course, sometimes joint ventures or other forms of alliances are formed because of government requirements. For example, in the early days of China's opening to foreign investment, the Chinese government demanded that all foreign companies partner with Chinese companies. We discussed the value chain in Chapter 5. Some of the value chain activities are listed here in Exhibit 9.2. The first decision is where to link in the value chain, and that depends on the company's strategic objective for the joint venture. For example, 2 companies might decide to merge at the research and development level. This would be an R&D alliance. Companies might decide to merge their R&D to share the risk of developing new costly technology, or possibly merge their talent. Developing new technology can be very costly, and sharing this burden with a partner can benefit both parties. Other alliances might be formed at the operations level, operations alliances. Companies merge manufacturing or assembly to achieve profitable volume. And so the alliance might be formed across supply of raw materials or manufacturing and marketing and sales. For example, GM and Renault formed a joint venture in which DM does the manufacturing and Renault, which is a French auto company, designs, develops, and supplies the engines for the vehicles. The operational alliances are the most common for US firms. In marketing and sales alliances, organizations might join forces to share advertising campaign costs. These have been common in the airline industry or across car dealers, sharing the costs of advertising campaigns to benefit both. Output alliances are also common in the airline industry. You might have heard of alliances that include multiple airlines. This offers a higher quality of service, thus an output link, higher quality of service for the traveler, where the traveler can experience seamless travel across destinations because the airlines participate and partner together to make the travel seamless with, for example, your luggage coming from your point of departure to the point of arrival, even if you're traveling across different airlines. An example for an airline alliance is the Star Alliance, which connects partners that serve 1,200 airports across the world and 26 member airlines. Once the decision has been made as to where in the value chain to link, the multinational can then move forth to select a partner. One important consideration is strategic complementarity. It's important to ensure that long-term as well as short-term goals are understood and shared among all partners. A foreign partner might want to gain market share in the host country, whereas the host country partner might want to gain access to new technology offered by the foreign partner. As long as both partners understand and respect each other's goals for the partnership, there is strategic complementarity. The parties don't have to have the strategic goals, but they have to be aware of each other's goals and put forth genuine efforts to make sure that both parties' goals are met when the strategic alliance is formed. This is part of commitment and trust that we'll discuss at the end of Chapter 9. Complementary skills are also important to consider. Each partner typically will bring unique skill sets that complement the skill sets lacking in the other partner. For example, the foreign partner might provide technical know-how, and the local provider will offer local market knowledge. A third important consideration is to ensure that management styles are compatible, both culturally and in terms of the organizational culture. So not just the culture of the specific society from which the company originates, but also the culture of the organization. There is no shortage of examples of failed alliances that were a result of incompatible management styles, incompatible organizational cultures. Another consideration refers to the dependency across the two partners. A successful partnership will be one that has balanced level of dependency. You are going to want to avoid having an anchor partner and try to avoid the elephant and ant complex. The anchor partner refers to a situation in which a partner holds back from the strategic alliance because it cannot or will not provide or share funding. And so it's very important to carefully assess the partner's financial situation to avoid finding oneself in this kind of conflict. The elephant and ant complex refers to a situation in which one partner is very large and one partner is much smaller. It's not necessarily a guaranteed failure when this is the case. Large and small companies can cooperate and be successful, but it's important to go into the partnership with awareness and to prevent the larger partner from dominating the partnership. Another important consideration is aligning operating policies. Organizations have to align how the organization is going to be operated on a day-to-day basis. This is important for joint ventures, but also for other types of alliances. And this can be in any aspect of the operation, like accounting or human resource management, reporting structures, financial decision-making. It can apply to things as simple as what holidays will be days off, because very often the holidays celebrated in the host country will be different from the holidays celebrated in the foreign country. And so even simple things like that are going to need to be aligned. A final point, but not the least important, is acknowledging the challenges in cross-cultural communication. It's important to align expectations regarding how communication will take place, and it's important to understand the actions that will be put in place if a shared language doesn't exist. Right? Communicating through interpreters can be quite burdensome, and so at times alliances will select a corporate language, which means it will be expected that individuals working for either of the partners will be proficient in the corporate language. When a shared language doesn't exist, accommodations have to be made to facilitate communication. Once the partner has been selected, the following step will be to choose an alliance type. There are 3 types mentioned in your textbook, but actually only 2. The first type discussed in your textbook are informal international cooperative alliances. These alliances are not legally binding, and because they're not legally binding, managers are usually going to limit the scope of involvement and resist revealing proprietary information. These types of alliances might be used to test compatibility before moving on to a more formal structure. And so we're going to spend most of our time discussing the other 2 forms of alliances. A formal international cooperative alliance is a non-equity alliance, but it is formal and legally binding. It will include specific formal concepts that each company will contribute to the relationship. This is typically going to be much higher level of involvement compared to the informal alliances. Usually, this will include a formal contract which will specify what each partner will give and what each partner will receive from the alliance. In these types of alliances, proprietary information is often shared, which makes backing out of the alliance more difficult. Sometimes one partner may take an equity share of ownership, and sometimes not. Examples that we looked at earlier are the Star Alliance in the airline industry. Another example is PepsiCo and Tingy. PepsiCo and Tingy formed a formal cooperative alliances to increase the share of non-alcoholic beverages in China. PepsiCo formed a strategic alliances partnering with China's leading instant noodles and beverage manufacturer, Tingy Holding. This happened in 2012, and Tingy's strong sales network helped Pepsi distribute beverages and products throughout China. So this is an example of a formal international cooperative alliance that is legally binding for both partners, even though it's a non-equity alliance. An international joint venture is a third type of alliance, and this is an equity alliance. The joint venture is actually a separate legal entity. So you might have two parent organizations that form a joint venture that is separate legal entity from both of the parent organizations and is partially owned by each one of the parent organizations. The contributions of each of the parents might come in different forms, like cash, investment, technology, or other resources. It can happen that at the end of, or once a joint venture has matured, one partner will buy out the other to become a wholly owned subsidiary. Sometimes the partnership is a 50-50% ownership. In countries where the government might require majority ownership for the host country partner, the ownership division might be 49-51%. If there are more than two partners in a joint venture, it will be called a consortium. One example of a joint venture is GM and AutoVAZ in Russia. In 2001, the two partners put in place a framework agreement for GM and AutoVAZ and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. GM put in close to 100 million in cash and equipment, owning 41% of the joint venture. AutoVAZ put a similar amount in intellectual property, patents, trademarks on particular vehicle models and buildings, also owning about 41% of the partnership. And the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development put in 40 million in cash and 100 million for facility loans. So this is an example of a joint venture across three entities. Exhibit 9.5 from your textbook summarizes some of the unique aspects of each one of the strategic alliance types. In the second part of Chapter 9, we'll look at how the strategic alliance negotiations take place, what types of management structures can be used, and discuss the importance of building commitment and trust between partners.